that we must benefit from oil is not a disgrace. This is our time to stand and speak for ourselves and say, listen here, based on how we were treated for decades in the Caribbean, this is our moment to stand again as a strong economic force in the world. No.
That's right.
Mia Motley comes here to tell me how I must be treated as a Guyanese. Why shouldn't treat me that way when we're there in Barbados?
And I'll tell you this more. While we're talking about renegotiating the contract, and I just said that even the National Assembly has been emasculated.
Yes, they have.
With what has to be 32.2. After signing of this agreement and its conformance with Article 15, the government shall not increase the economic burdens of the contractor under this agreement by applying to this agreement or the operations conducted thereunder any increase of or any new petroleum related fiscal obligation.
My goodness.
Including but not limited to any new taxes whatsoever, any new royalty, duties, fees, charges, value added taxes, or other. Look, the truth is, the National Assembly can increase taxes on all of us,
but not
Exxon.
But not ExxonMobil. They cannot touch this company. Do you understand what Ms. Mario is saying? That a company has more rights than a country in Guyana. The whole country.
And this is why I ask, would any one of us, would the president, sir, with greatest respect I say to you, would you sign a contract like this for your house and land?
No. And I'm here to break this down, please. Let me say just what you're speaking to here. If I have a coconut tree in my yard, let me make it as simple as possible for the average Guyanese to understand why you should be out here. You have a coconut tree in your yard. Somebody says, listen, I know you can't climb a coconut tree, I'll climb a big coconut for you. Fair enough, it's my coconut in my yard. They climb the tree and pick 100 coconuts. There's Exxon deal with Guyana now. So here what happened. 75 belong to me because they climb your tree. Of the rest that left, we blast it 50-50. If I sell it and I don't get any profit, you got nothing to get from your coconut in your yard. All Exxon did was come to explore and get the oil out of the ground. And they have more rights to it than us. Come on, man. Come on, man. Come on, man, Guyana. Come on. Let's be serious about this, please. Our political servants, I don't call them leaders. They are paid to serve Guyanese. Yes. You are paid to serve. No, not for me. Our political servants must understand that you have to do right by your generations. I promise y'all, I told you this, someday you'll have to answer to Guyanese people. There'll be a generational wake up in this country and you would not like them. We're the peaceful set. We're the nice set. We're the set who's ready to negotiate with you and say, listen, give us some respect. But there's a generation, the more they suffer. Bob Marley said a hungry man is an angry man. You can't have a hungry society. And everybody dancing around with about show-based projects. And Guyanese are not feeling the benefits of these projects. You have to respect us. You have to respect the average Guyanese. This is not a political matter in reference to parties. This is a national issue we face here. A crisis of historical proportions. How could Raphael Trotman, Hillary Clinton took him to the US? Remember that? Yes. I said we don't have the wisdom to deal with our money.
No, but what I'm mad about also, right? Okay, it is right and it is good. Y'all know me. I stood up fighting APNO AFC for 6 months on publicly.
That's right.
But I didn't do that for another set to do the same. Right there. Right, that's one.
I want y'all to hear this, man.
Two, it is correct. I will back you. Every corrupt politician, take them before the courts. Let the judges decide. Yeah. So if you believe former finance minister did some corrupt act, yes, let the court decide. But at the same time, sir, at the same time, you brought down APNO AFC in 3 years.
Yes.
Moving a vote of no confidence, which I, Yogi Mahadev, supported. But you moved a confidence motion based on them failing to keep campaign promises.
Right.
That was the basis.
Correct.
They failed to uphold their manifesto and their campaign promises. So let's have a conscience vote. Well, it's getting to be 2 years.
Correct.
And one of the campaign promises was to revise, relook, renegotiate this contract.
I remember that, and the persons who saying that Ali did not say that in the campaign trail, he did say that. He did say repeatedly that he shall renegotiate and revise the contract. However, he cannot do that, given certain chains, as Mr. Mahadio said, that are on their hands. You see, you have to understand now, when you have the interests of the Guyanese populace in mind, it's different from when you have your own interests in mind. You cannot have personal interest dealing with companies as ExxonMobil. You have to have a national interest. If you say to them that the Guyanese have a problem with this contract, they can't argue with you because they're a country. But you can't tell me that Granger Trotman, Jagdeo Ramatar, or what's the other one, Robert Prasad, got so much power that they could sign off oil blocks and then sign away the oil and we can't talk? So why are we Guyanese then?
Imagine what else could be signed away and we don't know. And
what else?
One last point I want to raise.
Go right ahead, my brother.
Look, as you said, and this is the third time we are saying it, we are not from any political party.
No.
We are not from any organized movement.
No.
We are individuals standing here.
Yeah.
And I want to ask the president, Mr. President, if you find that your hands are tied by this contract, the door is now open by telling Exxon, the citizens
Exactly.
are calling on you to do this. So you will look good either way it falls, sir.
Exactly.
Right? So
Bring it to
please,
the people.
maintain your campaign promise. Maintain your campaign promise. And as somebody said before, if you can't do it,
You need to leave. You need to get a power. Because I'm standing here representing all Guyanese, representing my children, representing along with these other people. Guyanese have interest in our affairs, man. This is disrespectful. This is extremely disrespectful. I believe that Raphael Trotman, David Granger must answer in a court of law for what they did to our oil. This is no joke, right? There's no political thing down here. You cannot sign away something like this without consenting with the population. Then you can't tell me, Jagdeo, that you accept this foolishness.
Each Chinese then 600,000.
Every one of us got to pay.
Expense right now. I don't know how.
Every Guyanese, every child that will be born to us, if this not stopped for the next 34 plus years, is bound to ExxonMobil's expenses. How is that right? How could GRA come and harass a businessman in Guyana who's Guyanese? Pay a tax or we take away a license, take away that, take away that.
Yeah.
And then our leaders, as they call themselves, tells Exxon, we can't tax you all. We are losing billions of US dollars per month, per year to ExxonMobil in taxes. And then they have the nerve to tell us, Jagdeo, that we can't audit them right now. The Auditor General said because of COVID-19 and short staff, you can't audit Exxon. So with all this money floating around, you cannot employ a private company for Exxon to tell you how they account for this $20+ billion, $9+ billion that they said they spent. Guyanese, this is our time.
This is the right time.
When this conference ends, our protests will not end. We fed up. My brother, I'm about to launch what is called a We Fed Up campaign. And we're going to take to the streets of Georgetown, peacefully, of course. I don't believe in this from my country, it's our country. We demand that politicians revisit things like this right here at the request or by the request of the people. This is not about PPP, APNO AFC, WPA. This is about the people here.
Yeah.
We are saying that you must revisit this contract. You must do it. You have to do it. Because you've disrespected us. And then you're boasting about 40+% increase in reference to our economy. I don't feel it. I don't feel 40% increase in this economy in reference to how wealthy Guyana now is. So who's benefiting from all this money? Who is?
The politician.
The final thing I want to talk about, if you can, Mr. Mahadio, is that that's what we're talking about here, the National Resource Fund Act, now law, states clearly by the PPP civic here that they'll have this board of 3 to 5 people that only one man will select. We don't have a saying that now. The president alone determines who sits on this board to spend our money. All right, fair enough. He also determines who's the chairman of the board. That's what you want to? Fair enough. Ashley Singh stood in Parliament, Mr. Mahadio, and Ashley Singh said that of the money we have thus far, $128 billion, $28 billion of the oil fund, as we call it, would be spent in this budget. There's no chairman of the board. There's no board.
correct.
Can you speak to the fact that how illegal that
Correct.
declaration is?
Well, last night we questioned it on one of the television programs, whether the action, right?
Right.
Whether
The
the action of wanting to withdraw monies from our natural resource fund is allowable under law, while the board the mechanism
The mechanism.
to allow that to happen has not been set up.
Non-existent.
But don't forget, if I were a betting man, I would take a bet today, but fortunately I'm not. And by we ain't got money to bet anyhow, right?
Right.
The careful words that you quoted was that this budget is going to use up so much money from the oil funds.
Oh, come on.
Don't forget, the government has a majority and can always go back to Parliament.
Wow.
Can always go back to Parliament for more money. And I predict it will happen.
It will happen.
Because the first year, check back the act, the first year that the act has been assented to, they could remove 100% all the money
100%.
from the fund. And this is the first year.
Did you hear that, Guyanese? We need to pay attention to
$1
the
million
country.
for the oldest charity, the oldest person.
All of the money that's in the US federal, I don't think the money should have been there in the first place. But I'm saying that the manner in which you extract this money, again, you have bypassed the Guyanese population. You bypass the opposition. You bypass everybody.
Yeah.
And decide before you have a board set up now that we're going to spend $126 billion from that money without having a chairman who tells you what to do and board is decided. This is disregard for Guyanese people. We are seeing right in front of our eyes here a political group and also an opposition now. Let me deal with you all. You want people to come on the street and in numbers and deal with these people. You know? And I need to know why.
The opposition has
Who is tying your hand?
the opposition, when they were in government, signed this contract.
Thank you. That's
Right?
the point about the
And Guyanese we have to realize after 55 years,
That you should get pension.
you know, we deserve better, much better, right? So let's start afresh.
I agree.
It is never too late to start afresh.
I agree.
Right? And go about setting Guyana as the priority number one. Not the cronies,
No.
not the family members, but Guyana as the priority one. We cannot continue to have
All of us.
laws being passed, regulations being made after contracts are signed
No.
to suit the contracts. That has happened
No.
before.
And it will happen again if you don't stop it.
Right? So, look, I have taken this route. I am calling. I respect the office of the president. I respect the president. I respect all political office holders, whoever you are. All we want, do the right thing for you. That's all we want. And we wouldn't have to be here.
Exactly.
And you want to share.
Exactly. And I'm here, as I said, from Linden. I drove all the way from Linden today because I have come to stand with all of those who stand in here. It's about time. I call on every religious leader, you pastors, you imams, you pundits, all of y'all, you need to stand for what is right by people. There is a generation and generations to come who deserve what is right. We can't have this cycle of disrespect continue in our country. We have to revisit, I believe, the Constitution to never have this happen again. Never. Because the Petroleum Act states plainly that any petroleum product that we extract in Guyana belongs to the people.
Oh,
It's called the state. It belongs to us.
our own.
That's right.
If it belongs to us, then you use the curveball to say,
I-
the googly to say, listen here, we are your representatives in Parliament. So we could do it on your behalf. Listen to me. Ask us first, because we ain't trust you anymore with this. I believe, Mr. Mahathir, that there needs to be a new generation of political leaders in this country.
Yeah. It's time.
They're set too selfish.
It's time.
It seems to me at this time right here that we have the worst political leaders ever in reference to number. I have not seen a more greedy, cold-hearted bunch
Opposition and leaders.
in reference to the numbers of people. You can't tell me that both sides now could sit back and have a company earn more than the whole country and you're okay with that? What are we going to do?
We need a full
What?
pay insurance in this
You
country.
trust if I give my name out here.
Now let me talk to you all about in reference to why I'm here as well. I saw yesterday it advertised, published actually, that old age pensioners get $3,000 more. You're giving my grandmother, or well, she's dead, but my mother, my father, just about $140 US per month. And you're saying that we must be happy about that?
Well,
How do you feel about that? Mr.
Look,
Mahathir?
Can't be happy.
look,
In
when
an
you
oil-rich nation.
when you talk to the politicians, they will tell you don't look at one pension, look at the total, the line item, right?
Right.
That you're getting into hundreds of millions. But I would want to ask you further. Take that total, that line total, and remove the pensions of all the politicians.
Oh,
and see how much is left for the people.
listen here. I have met a Guyanese who understands what is doing right by us means, honestly. And this, again, you're seeing here, once you don't have a political chain around your neck, you're free to talk. I hope you realize that. Nobody can tell me I don't vote for any one of y'all. Period. Mr. Mahadio stood, and you realize what's happening here? Let me pan this camera if I can. I want to show you all something. Did it work? No, it wouldn't work. Okay. All right. Two of us right here, if you can see. We are standing here as two Guyanese men, speaking in the interest of our country. Take note of a basic fact here. Even if, and I'm not saying I disagree with it, even if we have disagreements, we are standing in the interest of our country. You tell me why Norton can't do this, Ali can't do this, Jack Dio can't do this. Why you all can't get together at the top level where you take our taxpayers' money to feed yourselves?
That's right.
And say, listen, man, let's have a conversation about what matters to Guyanese people. Why you can't do that?
Correct.
Why?
Correct. And you know, as we started this conversation, we said they themselves would not enter a personal contract like this.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what you need to ask. And the final thing I want to ask you, would you sign, or would the court allow a contract signed in bad faith?
No.
Would the court allow that the politicians, the lawmakers, are muzzled and handcuffed?
No.
So my point is there are things we can do about this contract, but it requires just one thing: the willpower of the current ruling government.
Exactly.
They can do it. They promise us a lot. You deliver this, I will come out and campaign for you next time. I will say you have done the right thing.
You did the
because
right thing.
when people are doing right, I say so. But buddy, if you can't deliver this to us, we have nothing to hand our children and grandchildren.
No, I agree, and I must say thank you very much. Thanks to all the people who are here. As you can see again, I traveled from, it was a long morning for me, but I had to be here. I continue to be here. I will seek to engage Mr. Mahadio on social media in reference to programs and so on, so we can talk about a way forward. We have to arrange. Yes.
Tomorrow, I don't think that we'll be coming because
They're closing off today.
So we will not be up till tomorrow.
Thank you so much, brother.
But I'm happy for today because the crowd was small, we come and represent, but the information we got today was so explosive. And that's what we need.
Thank
That's
you.
what we need on behalf of the real government of this country, which is the
people.
No, but you see, I want to correct something. I didn't come here to be part of a mass protest.
I know.
The Constitution is for you and me.
Correct. Yeah,
We are individuals,
Exactly.
We are citizens.
and we all have a right.
Yeah.
And there are times we all wouldn't agree, and there are times we will agree. I am not here. I haven't bashed anybody except
Exactly.
wrongdoing. And so, whenever and whatever we do, I want to urge everybody peacefully.
Mm-hmm.
If you got to protest, know that the
Peaceful.
Constitution protects you as long as you're peaceful.
And last but not least, I thank you for empowering your brothers and sisters to let them know what we didn't know. Because that's what we need. We need empowerment so that we can stand as a people, not as a party, not as different races, but as a people. One people, one nation, one destiny. That's the only way we're going to survive in this country.
Thank you.
Own and control their natural resources.
We should do what?
Own and control our natural
Own
resources.
and control.
I think that was Bob's Barnum words. Guyanese is coming up, growing up in this country.
That's what he
Guyanese
said.
was own and control their natural resources.
But my brother, here's the problem though. We have a system of governance called proportional representation. Where them in parliament say they represent Guyanese. So technically they'll say that we want that. That's why we have to be in the street and talk.
Right.
Because those who represent us, it's called us in parliament, saying, listen man, Guyanese agreed to 2%, did we?
No. No.
How are you? Did we agree to that?
No.
Okay then. So how can you say that you represent me if I don't agree with what you did?
Yeah, that's the truth.
See?
And me represent.
But what we saw with Forbes Burnham, and I never agree with Burnham's election policies. I must say that publicly. I don't mean smart words with it. I agree with his national policy regarding the rights of Guyanese people. He always said we must own more than any other individual.
Right. He was
Because it's my stuff.
100%.
I agree with that. Let me take note of this too. Cherry Jagan had the same mind as Forbes Burnham. Say, listen man, Guyana is for Guyanese people. They share the view that the colonialists who try to invade or us economically, listen, man, we have a right to stand for ourselves. Do you know they call Chile communists? Because it's stood against them. All right, that's not the story.
Yeah,
All right.
but you see, the thing is, my brother, your foreparents, what were they?
Africa.
They came here to serve the Europeans.
Exactly.
My
Slaves.
foreparents came here to serve the
Same
Europeans.
purpose.
You call them servant, you call them slave, whatever you call them. They were beaten, they were raped, they were
Mhm.
kicked, they were mistreated, right? But all of a sudden, I have this feeling that we are now putting our children and grandchildren in that same boat.
Right back.
In the same
Thank you, Mr. Mahadi.
That's why we don't give
This is a day of awakening for Guyana.
same concern.
And if you understand, I can see Mike from the comments here, some of you getting the point. And the brother who just spoke about this is not a race issue, ethnic issue. It's not coincidental. I'm Afro-Guyanese, they call me. I'm Guyanese, they say Afro-Guyanese. This is an Indo-Guyanese here. And look at the two of us say again. Do you see ethnic issue here? No. Because Guyanese don't have this problem in general.
But this thing
This
ain't
is
got
not no
color.
race. Man, show me,
This
let me show
this
them.
contract ain't got color.
Do you see anything on this contract
I
about
don't see anything
Afro-Guyanese,
about Afro-Guyanese and
Indo-Guyanese?
Indo-Guyanese.
Thank you very much.
That's separation here.
Income
Oh.
guarantee.
Everybody get a uniform.
So when they sign this right here, they sign for every Guyanese.
Yeah.
Not no
Yeah,
specific
that's
race, ethnic group here.
Something for the self-taught for every guy needs. That's what they do.
This is our time to arise and demand what is rightfully ours.
Another thing that was never brought to the fore,
Please, thank you, bro.
never brought to the fore, is that the United States signed an agreement with the EITI before the contract. That's in 2014. They were official member of the EITI.
Since
Yeah,
2014.
EITI, right.
But they abdicated the responsibility
Uh-huh.
in 2017 on the 2nd of November, right?
Uh-huh.
They signed the contract in 2016,
Correct.
which means they were a member.
Correct.
Why is it that this government is not going after the EITI because they are the standard of governance and what you call transparency.
Right.
If you're the standard of governance and transparency and you knew a contract like this was signed, why didn't you come on?
Wow.
Why didn't you face up and say
Wow.
this is wrong?
And they have the office right here.
Yes.
here.
Like
Why is it
GLC.
the EITI is still sitting there?
Because you see, we as Guyanese, we have allowed the politicians to dominate every sphere
Every
Yeah,
sphere
but
of our
Yes.
existence. If you get social cohesion as the last government had, guess what? It was run by a politician.
Correct.
You get religious movements run by
Politician.
politicians. Anything you look at, trade unions run by politicians. Everything. And so what will happen is they're always going to look out for their political interest. That's bottom line.
It is.
So somebody has to say this. Somebody has to say this because the EITI right now is being run under the Cardin Noble Agreement, which was Section 1504 of the Dodd-Frank. Right?
Right.
So if nobody says anything about this, this government can, because that alone is a reason to renegotiate a contract.
Wow.
That alone.
They don't
that-
want us to know.
No. The United States was a member. They applied in 2011,
Yeah,
became
I
a
know.
full member in 2014, and abdicated their responsibility on November 2017.
Wow.
EITI.
Somebody
Are
has
you
to
hearing
go.
that?
Somebody has to go and let them know. I am on Facebook.
Mm.
Check. My name is Ray Daggers.
Ray Dagger.
Yes, my name is Ray Daggers. Right? And I don't respect a man who plunders people.
No.
No, I
Same
cannot
here.
respect a man who
Same here.
plunders people.
And let me just pay attention to that statement right there. As I said to you, people can't lead me if I cannot follow you. To lead means I have to be behind you.
Right.
And there's no political lead in this country right now that I'll follow because of what you did. Let me highlight this to you guys. For 3 years plus, I think it was, Granger never said a word as to who got these oil blocks. Never said it. It took a media house to report that Ramatar gave a company this oil block and they had no money to pay for it. Now, if you came to expose corruption, Mr. Granger, how you never told Guyanese what happened with the oil block before? You never said a word. Then we started hearing, by the way, what happened to our oil.
And soon the oil block.
You realize what's happening here? Then we've got negotiations with Papyrus and other things happening now. More oil under the same handcuffed agreement. See, all they want to stop this because somebody's benefiting excessively.
Yeah.
Think about I think it's in Guinea, Equatorial Guinea. The president and his son are about the richest men among the richest in the world. The nation is about the poorest in the world.
Yeah.
It is proven that ExxonMobil is in Equatorial Guinea, by the way. Giving these people a family, a man, his son, and everybody has money, but the people are suffering.
But I think in conclusion, my brother, because I want to go,
We shall.
I want to remind everybody of this.
I hope I can capture.
Right? I want to remind everybody of Section 32(1). Without the prior consent of the contractor, which means the contractor accepts that you can approach them for renegotiation and other stuff here. All that the present government needs to do is to show us they have the intellectual fortitude
That's correct.
and other fortitude to go and do this.
There is just
Represent
cause.
us.
There is, thank you so much, Mr. Mahadio. I would certainly reach out to you somehow for,
Yeah, there
for
are
the
a number
conversation.
of other things. There are
That's what I
millions
said.
of dollars here
All right?
that we got to question where
You have to. So we have got a clause in the contract that gives the government, the administration, the right through the people to revisit this negotiation.
Let me say this.
All right?
As everybody knows here, and I want to say this very publicly, there's only 3 words I will ever quote from Anali. I don't like her politics. She has been a nice woman. She and I have had a good relationship.
Right.
But for
Politically
politics,
terrible.
yes.
Bring-
There are 3 words.
Bring, it begins with bring.
Bring it on.
I remember those words.
Because
Bring it on.
I don't know if y'all have seen, I have been vilified. At one time, everybody used to think I own all the properties in town. Well, recently, they now post that I am the owner of, 44 MTVs and mining this and mining
Right.
that. No, I am publicly standing here looking you in the eye and say I'm willing to open my bank accounts. Anything I have that you think you have a suspicion, come, bring it on, investigate, and let's do the same for you.
Let's do it across the, you see that? That's what you call responsible behavior from Guyanese people.
Right.
Come on, Granger. Come on, Harmon. Come on, Barrett Jagdio, Mr. Irfanali, all of y'all. Let's do this across the board. If you want to lead us, let us see what you have. And I would like to suggest, by the way,
Let us see some good
anyone who has failed us, like you proper politicians now, you and your relatives should have all the assets seized. Until you could prove to us that this didn't come by ExxonMobil or any other deal.
Correct.
We will get this right.
It will all be exposed.
It will be exposed.
We know what's
Because
going on.
they don't know ExxonMobil's people. If you begin to even give them a hint that you want to renegotiate the contract, they'll expose every last one of you.
Another thing I want to expose.
Go ahead.
That Mr. Jagdev never said to this country that ExxonMobil was expelled from the Climate Leadership Council for 2 years straight.
Why?
He never said it.
Let him tell us why.
The reason is because they have something on him.
Exactly.
And not only on him, on all the politicians. So let him come forward and say why ExxonMobil was expelled, right, or suspended for 2 years from the Climate Leadership Council. Let him come forward and say it.
Guyanese brothers and sisters, I thank you all so much. I didn't waste my trip from Linden. I didn't waste my gas. And unlike the politicians who you say lead you, nobody pays for my fuel. Nobody pays for Mr. Mahadi and these people standing here. These are Guyanese. I don't call Guyanese ordinary. None of us is an ordinary Guyanese. We are extraordinary Guyanese. Because we stood out here when many couldn't have the guts to stand. And we don't want no crowd to stand.
That's right.
We stand for a cause, not for a crowd.
All I want is my own.
Exactly.
So we continue to do this. And I'll continue to come back to Georgetown. And at some point, we're going to have a march in the street peacefully called the We Fed Up March, demanding that all, probably next month, because they tell us we got to get permission from Mark Phillips to walk the street. Imagine we come to that stage. They say because of COVID, you can't walk the street. And I tell you publicly, COVID can't last forever. So we will walk peacefully, demanding that you do what's right by us. We'll make it known. All right? So exactly. So you see to say because of us, the Guyanese people, we have to get permission to walk. But they could meet in there with no mask on and all that. I want to tell you all that Exxon is not our enemy. The enemies are within our borders and they've sold us out. We're not accepting this. So Guyanese, I thank you all for our time. For your time, we shall be further engaged I thank Mr. Mahadi. I thank everyone, these citizens of this great country who stood with us. What I find interesting is Sarah Ann Lynch and the likes of her are very quiet on a certain situation. You see, I don't scare anyone here. I tell you, take my visa, take my passport, take what you want. Every day if you have to. But being finished yet, we now start. This is the beginning, not tomorrow, but we make it not you when we start walking the street.
Protest is not just about gathering.
Exactly.
When they say the crowd is small, how much people you know? 100, 20,
There you go.
1? There you go. You represent 1.
You represent who you know.
100. Everybody you talk to, here's your view. And share the view. As our moderator said, as we all agreed, we're not here to beat up the politicians except when they do wrong.
Exactly.
Right? And all we are asking, renegotiate, relook,
Get it right by
revise,
us.
let us get this contract right for Guyana.
For Guyana. That's what I'm saying to you. It must be made right by us, please. All right? So thank you all so much. Do well. Thank you, Mr. Mario. We shall meet.
There are
Do well.
very much.
Yes. So, definitely.
All right. The best. So hope we get something going. We can keep something like that.
Definitely.
All right, you heard what's happening out there at the Marriott, in front of the Marriott. Lots of voices, surprises, and people are now speaking out. Some people are speaking out because, in my opinion, they are patriotic. Some people are now speaking out because they're upset. Some people are now speaking out because they're hurt about whatever. But whatever the situation is, we've got to thank them for speaking out now. And now, in terms of the EITI report, that EITI report was actually submitted under the coalition in 2019. It is the PPP that is not submitting any report, none whatsoever. But look, let me say this. I applaud the folks who are out there. Nigel London drove all the way from Linden to be there. He burned up his gas to be there. He is using his energy to do, in my opinion, the right things. He's not using his energy to cuss up and abuse out internally. He's doing the right thing. Now, I don't necessarily agree with him on everything, but he has that right to do and to say what he's saying. But Yog Mahathir was actually out there. Yog Mahathir is speaking out now. But what I want, and which is good, mind you, so don't get me wrong, it is good that Yog Mahathir is speaking out. Now, when Irfan Ali, when Donald Ramotar gave away 2 big oil blocks to people who know nothing about oil, nothing, absolutely nothing, just days prior to the 2015 elections. All these people, every single one of these people, or most of them, who are speaking out now and calling for transparency and all manner of things they're calling for now, transparency. And they believe in the people, and they believe that when people do wrong, they can speak out. Me? I'm not going to be that gullible to jump up and embrace and hug them and chat to them and say, I like what you're saying. Mind you, it's good that they're speaking out. So don't get me wrong. But these folks didn't speak out about those questionable 2 oil blocks that were given away to friends and cronies under the PPP, under Donald Ramotar's minority government. None. People were quiet. They were quiet. I don't know why they were quiet. I don't know if some of these people, because of some raw deal and all these different things, that they expected some sort of deals under the PPP, now that the PPP has been installed and all. I don't know whether there's a falling out. I don't know. But people are speaking out now. And it's good that they are speaking out now. But one of the things that I'm not going to, if I were out there, I'll probably give Yog Mahathir a little, not a high five, just a little tap. But one of the things, though, that I want to ask Yog Mahathir, since he's so concerned about country and transparency and democracy and these things, I want to ask Yog Mahathir, how does he feel? And it's not irrelevant because he's the one who's talking about transparency and holding people accountable and all these different things. All these different things. How does he feel about the outcome of the 2020 elections? And whether he still harbors that view that the elections were rigged by coalition people. I want to look, the elections to me is not over. It's just not over yet. And I don't want people who pomposette themselves and jumped on the mountaintop and talked about patriotism, talked about transparency, talked about free and fair elections, when the entire elections, and especially what the PPP did, remains something that is questionable, and a dark cloud is hanging over the entire country as it pertains to those elections. The elections are not over. We still have 2 elections petitions lingering in the courts. And the only set of people who are blocking those elections from being heard, those elections petitions cases, mind you, is the PPP. Why? Why Yog Mahathir? We're going to get back to oil and energy just now. But I don't want people to feel that they could come and just throw a blanket over me and say, let us cover up, politically speaking, and hug up and kiss up, just like that. Now, I know Yog since his days at GT&T, when he was the the CEO of Guyana Telecom, GT&T. Now, all I'm saying is Yog and these guys had a heck of a lot to talk about riggers and who are riggers and who are this and who are that. Now, don't get me wrong. It's good to see Yog out there speaking out. I'm not just going to be one of them who jump up and going to say, that Yog is so patriotic that he's speaking. Why is Yog speaking out now? I've never heard Yog speaking out with so much passion before. But again, it's good that he's speaking out. Don't get me wrong. It is good that he's speaking out. These guys cannot be convenient in speaking out, in fighting for justice, and talking about transparency, and talking about democracy, and talking about the rule of law, and talking about a manner in which a regime operates or treats its citizens, only when it's convenient for them. And then when it's convenient for them, then they say, we are all Guyanese. And look at how we are out here together. We are all Guyanese. When people were brutally murdered, executed, extrajudicially, and otherwise in that country, shouldn't we have the same energy? Shouldn't all of we, the Yog Mahadhirs and them, be so patriotic, be so concerned about the manner in which the country is being governed? Or should it just be when folks feel it is convenient for them to speak out? And when others come now to speak out, you make an issue, you argue the point that, look at this, in front of the Marriott now, all of us are speaking out. We are all Guyanese. Look at the brother. Look at Brother London. Look at me. Look at this other person. We are all Guyanese. I agree and I support that. 100%, don't get me wrong. But when people are being discriminated against, when 3,000 plus workers, mainly persons of African descent, have lost their jobs. I wish that I, at that time, heard voices such as Yog Mahathir, who would jump on a mountaintop and say, it is wrong what the government or the installed regime is doing. It is wrong. You cannot terminate people, thousands of people, as a result of their perceived political affiliation. Yog Mahathir didn't embrace that struggle as a Guyanese, as a patriotic Guyanese, as one who believes that we all should be together and confront the ills of a government. Now, confronting the ills of a government doesn't mean that you should be picky, as what I'm seeing now. Decide when they're going to come out and when they're going to try to throw a blanket over people's faces to say we're all together. When the people were shot and killed in Linden, they were Guyanese too. But nobody embraced it as a Guyanese and an injustice meted out to the people of Linden for them to be slaughtered under the Donald Ramatar's regime. We don't see that. And so I wouldn't just quickly rush to embrace individuals who pick, whenever it's convenient for them, to join a protest and say, I'll be a one. And that they want transparency and they want justice. This oil thing is bigger than we think. A lot of people could be vexed because they didn't get in to part of the oil deal. And I am going to sit and I'm going to, as we say in Guyanese talk, I'm going to suss these individuals out. And I'm going to be able, me that is, to determine whether they are sincere or not. I see a lot of hypocrisy. And when I see the hypocrisy, I will call out those hypocrisy. If Dr. Yog Mahathir is concerned about the development of the country, then he should and he ought to be concerned about not conveniently, but he should be concerned about the development and the lack of transparency and the discrimination against mainly persons of African descent. I want to hear Yog Mahathir also talk about the discriminatory practice in terms of the, the cash distribution, where thousands of people have gotten their pink slips, waiting to receive their cash, their COVID cash grants, mainly in areas, stronghold of the coalition. They're still waiting. I want to hear Yog Mahathir and others speak out about that. That is being patriotic. That is being Guyanese. That is being standing up against discrimination, racial discrimination, and political discrimination against a bunch of people in that country who do not deserve that level of discrimination. Don't tell me that the only time folks are going to come out and want me to jump on a mountaintop and blow a whistle. But when other forms of discrimination, racial and political discrimination and persecution, that they sit back, they do nothing, they smile, or they condone those sort of atrocities by an installed regime. I wasn't born yesterday. I was born sometime in the 1970s. It was a long time ago. But I can tell you guys this, I wasn't born yesterday. And I didn't attend the University of IFLAT. Now let's get back to this. Protest. The protest is a good thing. Here's why it's a good thing. And I don't need the likes of a Yog Mahathir, nothing personal against Yog, mind you, but I don't need the likes of a Yog Mahathir to tell me that the protest is good. I know that it is good because people ought to be out there protesting. Sorry that I put this up here. This is a bit funny, but let's remove that. Right? The protest is good because the regime discriminated against persons in the opposition. They didn't want people in the opposition to go out there to represent, to be part of this one Guyana, of which Irfan Ali loves to parrot himself around the country talking about one Guyana, one Guyana. He probably sleeps, wake up, and jumps up and come out back to talk one Guyana, one Guyana. He probably dreams about one Guyana, one Guyana. But in reality, there is no one Guyana under the PPP. There is a divided Guyana. Let us face reality. A divided Guyana under the installed PPP regime. Now let me go to Dolly Jones. Hi, Dolly. Good morning. Yep, Mahathir now wake up. That is true. But why now? Lots of other things happened. And elections was rigged. But yet they tried to convince us and people that it was the PNC or APNU AFC coalition that rigged the elections without any evidence. They talk about evidence. Let them don't tell me that the PPP gave them SOPs or the PPP gave them evidence. And because the PPP gave them evidence, I must accept that as evidence. That is not evidence. A man named Sue accused Jagdeo of corruption. Jagdeo rushed and he said that Sue said no. And because Jagdeo said that, Jagdeo of all persons, we must put our hands up and say, there's no evidence? There's no corruption? No. So the elections, these evidence or the evidence that these guys are talking about, it doesn't exist. They have a conscience. And what folks like Yog Mahathir need to do is that they need to apologize to the nation. They need to apologize to coalition supporters and the leadership of the coalition. And they need to also stand up in defense against the persecution of individuals, senior operatives at GCOM, and other members of the coalition who are being persecuted in court right now. That is what I want folks like Yog Mahathir and them to do, to stand up and speak out against those sort of things. Of course, they didn't speak out when Jagdeo was associated and the PPP were associated with Phantom Squad killers and all of these things. No. Of course, they didn't speak out when this guy Robeson Ben and other operatives of the PPP were blaming coalition members of setting fires around Georgetown and all of these things. Of course, they wouldn't speak out. And of course, they're not going to call on Robeson Ben to release the fire department investigations, the report from that investigation, of which he, Robeson Ben, promised since November of last year to release. Of course, they're not going to speak out about that. Of course, they're not going to talk about the plight of the ordinary, the people who are in the streets, the homeless individuals who have nothing at all. We're not going to hear them talking about that at all. Of course, they're not going to talk about Dharam Lal and his dildo comment and his disrespect to female members of the opposition. Of course, they're not going to talk about that. They're not. You know why they're not going to talk about that? Of course, they're not going to talk about that. Sorry about that. Of course, they're not going to talk about that. They're not, because it doesn't suit their agenda. Are they going to talk about an Amerindian family walking to bury their loved one? A little boy, a 3-year-old boy who died as a result of COVID-19? No, they're not going to do that because it doesn't suit their agenda. Are they going to talk about a family who is basically out there burying? Look at how this family, this indigenous family, have to be out there to bury their loved ones. No, they're not going to talk about that. Are they going to talk about the disrespect coming from Parliament by this PPP controlled Speaker of the National Assembly, Manzoor Nadir? No, they're not going to talk about that. Are they going to talk about the fact that this guy, Manzoor Nadir, suspended a member of parliament because that member of parliament, and I hope Yog is watching, that member of parliament, Sherrod Duncan, stood up in defense of the women on the opposition side of the bench? Are they going to stand up for that? No, they're not going to stand up for that. Sherrod Duncan was suspended for 4 sittings. Are they going to stand up about that? No, they're not going to stand up. No, they're not going to say anything about that at all because it doesn't suit their agenda. But when something suits their agenda, then they come out and they package it and they say, we are all Guyanese. And look at us. One Indian, one African. Look at us. Now, again, it's good that they're out there. Don't get me wrong. But are they going to stand up and say, look at how this member of parliament, he's also an installed junior minister. Look at what he's doing. Look at how he's treating parliament. Sitting around, running around. They're not going to talk about these things. They're not going to condemn these things. Are they going to talk about, look at how Guyanese are being treated, given a cutlass and pitchfork or whatever to go and dig drains? Look, in 2022, look at that. Are they going to talk about that? No, they're not going to talk about that. Are they going to talk about the good work that the Guyana Public Service Union, Credit Union, is doing under the leadership of Trevor Ben? No, they're not going to talk about that because it doesn't suit their agenda. Are they going to even talk about this guy Sue? Are they going to call publicly? And if they did, well, my apologies, but I haven't heard anything. Are they going to be talking about an investigation in what Sue accused Bara Jagdeo of doing? No, they're not going to talk about that at all because it doesn't suit their agenda. Bara Jagdeo said that this guy Sue is a tenant. Bara Jagdeo of him. Bara Jagdeo come out and he denied bribery allegations. He says Sue denied bribery allegations. Now this is serious. Not just the oil or the energy expo is serious. This is serious. But are we going? Some of them are not even writing about this in their column. They're not going to say anything about this in their columns. Look at what the people in Blackbush Polder are going through. Look at the conditions of the roads and all these manner of things. Are they going to talk about that? No, they're not going to talk about that. They're not going to say anything about that at all. Look, the persecution of these 3 persons and others. Are they going? Look, until they start talking about these things, and to come to the realization and accept that a wrong was done to these people and others under the installed PPP regime. Don't just come and tell me about oil deal. Don't just tell me about oil deal. I wish Yog Mahathir would have offered an opinion or his views against the injustice meted out to this family who was murdered, this businessman who was murdered by a member of the special SWAT team. Murdered to this day. This guy, Orrin Boston's family, is still awaiting justice. Huh? Are they going to talk about this deal with the Sputnik deal that is highly questionable? Are they going to talk about that? I doubt that they're going to talk about these things because it doesn't suit their agenda to talk about these things. They're not going to. Me and Barn yesterday, and me and Dotish. Trust me. And until some people start speaking out on all the other forms of injustices. Don't feel that you could make me into what you think you want to make me into. It's not going to work. And Suzette Fortune is correct. The Henry Boys and the other injustices, police brutality, and so forth. Are they going to speak out about those things? Are they going to speak out about the politicization of the Guyana police force? Are they going to talk about what is happening and how the PPP, the installed folks of the PPP, are controlling the police force? They're not going to talk about that. They're not. Are they going to talk about this? 61 dead voters, 4,864 absent voters, 150 stuffed ballot boxes, 47 ballot boxes without documents, 1,278 missing oaths of identity. Are they going to talk about that? But no, they're going to come and try to tell you, they're going to try to tell us that the elections were rigged under the coalition without any evidence. No evidence whatsoever. Now look, if the coalition rigged the elections, ask this question. It's a sensible question. Why is the PPP preventing the elections petitions cases from being heard? Because once the elections petition cases are being heard, guess what? What will reveal from those cases, the two cases, will be the evidence through the SOPs presented as evidence and other forms of evidence. But we all know why the PPP is afraid of the elections petition or petitions. It is because of the evidence inside. They don't want it to be revealed because it's going to prove to the world, to all Guyanese and the world, and including folks like Yog Mahadio, that the elections were actually rigged indeed, but not by the APNU-AFC coalition. Who rigged the elections? Maybe Yog Mahadio and others should tell us, since they seem to know. They seem to think that they have evidence. I wasn't born yesterday. And as a little boy, coconut didn't fall and knock my head. I'll be back on Straight Up this evening. Pressure bust pipe indeed. And pressure busting a lot of pipes. Now, I know, pressure busting pipes indeed. For different reasons. And when somebody said pressure bust the pipe, I'm not going to rush just like that. I want to see what sort of pressure they're talking about and where or what got bust. Because at the end of the day, me head na bust. Me na stupidity. Nobody wants to talk about the oil contract that was given away to Ramatar Friends, illegally to Ramatar Friends. None of them want to talk about that. Yes, contracts and mistakes were made by the coalition in the signing of the contract or whatever aspects. Mistakes were made. But the bulk of the mistakes were made under the PPP. Many people would jump up and say, you know what? The coalition should have revealed. But when governments sign contracts, it is difficult for those contracts to be exposed because of the contractual arrangement. Now, the coalition should have found ways in exposing those two contracts and the owners of those contracts. But because maybe some of those who were supposed to do the exposing became complicit. I don't know. I'll be back this evening. One more thing before I go. Some people cussing me that I block them on my show. Some people cussing me that I don't take phone calls. We know who those usual suspects are. I'm not too bothered about that. And now, on the issue of blocking, if you're going to come on this platform and cuss up and go on bad and be disrespectful, you will be blocked. There's no apologies for that. Absolutely none. And this show is not a regular call-in show. This is a radio program. This is a radio station. There are times we have numbers up for people to call. Some people call and some people don't call. But those who are cursing me, I know who you are, but I'm not too bothered. But one other thing. Quite a few folks have said that I've blocked them on Facebook. I've blocked a lot of trench crappos, and our operators have blocked a lot of trench crappos. Just like the other Facebook host, they block people too. Justifiably. So I wouldn't wake up just like that and see somebody on the left lane or the right lane and just block them just like that. Now respect the platform. If you cuss up and you misbehave and you utter derogatory things against especially those who are justified, not the riggers. And even with the riggers, on the PPP side, I wouldn't tolerate the sort of cursing and loose talk on this platform. It's just not going to happen. See you guys this evening. And sometimes even friends would send me a screenshot and say, you blocked me. And they're not actually blocked. Then later they realize that they're not blocked. Put on your sense cap, some people, no man. And if you can't handle the heat in this lane, then stay in your one-track lane. My name is Mark Benja. I'll see you guys later on. Continue with the pressure against the PPP regime. Continue with that pressure, but do not be fooled by people who hop on now to hug you with a fake hug and tell you they love you because they're conveniently joining the struggle. See you tonight.
She put a pot on she hair and gone. Them a the first one out on the dam. Basket on she head, bucket in each hand. Hold up on she frock, I wanna she grandson. To the market, them a go. For the morning, the day is dawning. For cockcrow to give the villagers a warning. Rise and shine, the birds them a sing. All animal take turn as them join in the waking. Cockcrow, dagaba, donkey, bray, horse, and they even duck a quack. Cockcrow, dagaba, donkey, bray, horse, and they even duck a quack. Come and hear this sweet story that tell the people about life in the country. All day a back down, me now a come home. Inaga, jackass yard for fetchy load. Cockle Cheyenne, bag over shoulder, running by his side, a Rexy and Rover. From the farm, them a come. So now go down but up the river. Some washing clothes, some folks are bathing at the water. Fisherman, they catch them a bring. From a canoe boat, man, them start offloading. Aymara, Kwakwari, Hail Baka Kuma Kuma, even Lokonani. Aymara, Kwakwari, Hail Baka Kuma Kuma, even Banga Mary. Listen to this sweet story that tell the people about life in the country. Them children glad when the weekend